The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and dreamed of what lay beyond. When they finally reached those stars, they found that the universe was already full of life. Ancient civilizations had spread across the galaxy long before humans learned to make fire. These elder races looked at humanity the way a grown man looks at a crawling baby. They saw nothing to fear and nothing to respect. For 60 years, humanity played the role given to them. They bowed their heads. They said please and thank you. They followed every rule the galactic conquered created, even when those rules were unfair. When alien ships violated human space, humanity filed complaints. When alien traders cheated human merchants, humanity asked for mediation. When alien soldiers killed human colonists in border disputes, humanity requested investigations that never went anywhere. Admiral Daniel Carter had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 35 years. He had gray hair now and lines on his face that told stories of too many funerals. He remembered burying friends who died because the conquered refused to let humanity build proper warships. He remembered watching alien ambassadors laugh at human protests. He remembered swallowing his anger again and again because that was what good soldiers did. On the morning that changed everything, Daniel stood in the United Earth Council chamber in Geneva. The room was full of the most powerful humans alive. Presidents and prime ministers sat in curved rows facing a central podium. Massive screens showed news feeds from across human space. Today, those screens showed fire and death. New Eden had been a paradise. 3 million humans had built a life on that green world at the edge of explored space. They grew crops that fed a dozen colonies. They raised children who had never known war. They believed they were safe because they had done nothing wrong. The Empire disagreed. The species claimed they had owned that system 2,000 years ago. They never settled it. They never used it. But when humanity made it bloom, they decided they wanted it back. Their warships arrived without warning. New Eden had no defenses because the conquered did not allow young species to arm their colonies. They gave the colonists 1 hour to evacuate. There were not enough ships to move 3 million people in 1 hour. Everyone knew that. They knew that too. When the hour ended, plasma fire rained from the sky. The footage on the council screens showed cities burning. It showed people running with nowhere to go. It showed children looking up at the bright lights that would be the last thing they ever saw. Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest as he watched. It was not grief, though grief would come later. It was not rage, though rage burned beneath the surface. It was certainty. The certainty that came when a man finally accepted a truth he had been fighting for years. The ambassador entered the chamber as if he owned it, was tall even for his species, nearly 3 meters of black chitin and clicking mandibles. His compound eyes reflected the burning cities on the screens, and he showed no shame at all. The Empire has reclaimed its territory, he announced. The human infestation has been removed. We trust there will be no further discussion of this matter. No one spoke. The silence was so complete that Daniel could hear his own heartbeat. Then Councilwoman Lisa Morgan rose from her seat. She was not a large woman. She had spent her career in diplomacy, building bridges between species who had nothing in common. She had always believed that patience and understanding could solve any problem. Daniel had known her for 20 years, and he had never seen her look the way she looked now. "Ambassador," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. 3 million human beings died today, men and women and children who had done no harm to anyone. Do you have anything to say about that? The ambassador made a clicking sound that passed for laughter among his kind. They should not have been there. Young species must learn their boundaries. Consider this a lesson. Lisa nodded slowly. She looked around the chamber at the faces of her fellow council members. Daniel saw fear in some of those faces. He saw grief in others. But in many, he saw the same cold certainty he felt in his own heart. For 60 years, Lisa said, humanity has tried to be good neighbors. We followed your rules. We respected your traditions. We buried our dead and told ourselves that things would get better. We believed that if we were patient enough and kind enough, you would eventually see us as equals." She stepped closer to the ambassador. Guards moved to stop her, but Daniel raised his hand and they went still. "We were wrong," Lisa continued. "You will never see us as equals. You will never treat us with respect. You will keep taking and killing until there is nothing left to take and no one left to kill." Tilted his head, studying her like an interesting insect. "What do you propose to do about it, little human? File another complaint? Request another investigation? We both know how that ends." Lisa smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had made a decision that could not be unmade. "No more complaints," she said. "No more investigations. No more bowing and scraping and hopping for mercy from creatures who have none." She turned to face Daniel. "Admiral Carter, what is the status of Project Blackout?" The chamber erupted in whispers. Project Blackout was humanity's deepest secret. For 40 years, hidden facilities across the solar system had been building weapons and ships that no alien had ever seen. Scientists had studied every technology they could find and created something new, something dangerous. Daniel straightened his shoulders. "All assets are ready, councilwoman, awaiting your order." Lisa turned back to the ambassador. "Tell your emperor this message. The United Earth Council declares war on the Empire, not for territory, not for resources, for justice, for every human life you have taken, for every insult we have swallowed, for every time you made us kneel." Laughed again, longer this time. "You cannot wage war against us. You have no fleet. You have no weapons. You are nothing but prey animals pretending to be predators." "We will see," Lisa said. "You have 72 hours to withdraw all forces from human space. After that, we will come for you. And Ambassador, I want you to remember something when the fire starts falling on your worlds instead of ours." She leaned close enough to see her reflection in his compound eyes. "You could have been our friends. You chose to be our enemies. Now you will learn what that means." She turned and walked out of the chamber. Daniel followed her, along with every human in the room. Behind them, the ambassador stood alone, still laughing. He would not be laughing for long. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had always been a quiet place. Miners worked there, pulling valuable metals from rocks that tumbled through the endless dark. Ships came and went, and no one paid much attention. The Galactic Concord had inspectors who checked on human activities, but they never looked too closely at mining operations. Rocks were not interesting. Rocks were not dangerous. That was exactly what humanity wanted them to think. Deep inside the largest asteroid, hidden behind false walls and sensor-blocking shields, Commander Price walked through corridors that should not exist. Around him, thousands of workers moved with purpose. Engineers ran final checks on systems that had taken decades to build. Soldiers loaded weapons into ships that the galaxy had never seen. Was 42 years old. He had spent the last 15 years commanding patrol boats that were barely armed and easily destroyed. He had watched friends die in border incidents that the Concord called unfortunate accidents. He had written letters to families explaining that their sons and daughters would not be coming home. Every letter had carved a piece out of his soul. Now he stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, and everything was different. The ship was 3 kilometers long. It bristled with weapons that human scientists had spent 40 years perfecting. Its engines could push it to speeds that supposedly violated the laws of physics. Its armor was made from materials that did not exist in any Concord database. It was beautiful and terrible, and loved it the way a man loves a faithful hound. "All stations report ready, Commander," said Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. She was young, barely 30, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The other ships are powering up across the belt. We go live in 6 minutes." Nodded and settled into his command chair. The leather creaked under his weight. This chair had been waiting for him his whole life. He just had not known it. "What about the patrol?" he asked. 12 ships, standard formation. They are sitting at the edge of the belt, probably waiting to see if we try to run. Allowed herself a small smile. They have no idea what is coming. Good, let us keep it that way until the last possible moment. The countdown ticked away. Thought about his parents, who had died when a cruiser accidentally fired on a civilian transport. He thought about his sister, who had been on New Eden visiting friends when the plasma fell. He thought about all the years of helpless rage that had built up inside him like pressure in a sealed container. Today, that container would finally burst. "All ships, this is Defiance," he said into the fleet channel. "We are go for Operation Awakening. Stay tight, follow your attack patterns, and remember what we are fighting for. They wanted prey. Let us show them predators." The hidden doors in the asteroid opened. The Defiance glided out into open space, followed by 11 more ships just like it. For a moment, they hung there against the stars, weapons dark, engines humming with restrained power. Then the detected them. "Commander, enemy patrol is hailing us," reported. "They seem confused. Their sensors are having trouble reading our ships." "Put them through." The main screen flickered, and a captain appeared. His compound eyes kept shifting, probably watching multiple data feeds that made no sense to him. Human ships were not supposed to look like this. Human ships were not supposed to be this big. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves," the captain demanded. "You are in violation of conquered restrictions on human military development. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Leaned forward in his chair. "My name is Commander Price of the United Earth Navy. I am in command of the USS Defiance, first of the Titan-class dreadnoughts. You are in human space, threatening human ships. I suggest you leave." The captain recovered quickly. His kind were arrogant, but they were not stupid. "One human ship cannot threaten a patrol fleet. We have 12 vessels. You are surrounded." "I count 12 of you and 12 of us. That seems fair." The captain looked off-screen, probably receiving updates from his tactical officers. When he looked back, there was uncertainty in his posture. "Your ships do not match any known human designs. Where did you build them?" "Here and there. We had 40 years to work on them while you were busy treating us like insects." Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Last chance, Captain. Turn your ships around and go home. Tell your emperor that the humans are not playing games anymore. Surrender is not an option for the Empire. If you will not power down, we will disable your ships by force." The captain cut the transmission. Watched the enemy fleet begin to move into attack formation. They were confident. They had fought dozens of engagements against human patrol boats and won every single one. They expected this fight to be no different. He turned to his weapons officer, was a quiet man with steady hands and cold eyes. He had lost his entire family on New Eden. "Pick your target and fire when ready." His fingers moved across his console. Gravity cannon charged, target locked on lead cruiser. "Send it." The weapon that fired from the Defiance was something new in the galaxy. Human scientists had discovered that gravity could be focused and shaped like light through a lens. The pulse that struck the cruiser was invisible, but its effects were not. The ship crumpled like paper in a fist. Metal screamed and tore. Atmosphere vented in frozen clouds. In less than 2 seconds, a warship that had terrorized human colonies for decades became a ball of twisted wreckage. The other ships froze. They had never seen anything like this. Their weapons were based on plasma and missiles and kinetic rounds. Gravity was supposed to be a constant, not a weapon. "All ships engage," ordered. The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Hurled metal slugs at 15% of light speed. Laser batteries cut through shields that were designed to stop plasma. Missile swarms overwhelmed point defense systems that could not track so many targets at once. They tried to fight back. They managed to score a few hits on the human ships. The Defiance shuddered as a plasma bolt struck her port side, but the armor held. Human engineers had studied weapons for decades and built defenses specifically to counter them. In 4 minutes, it was over. 12 warships had become 12 expanding clouds of debris. The human fleet had taken damage but lost no ships. Stared at the wreckage on his screen. He had expected to feel triumph or satisfaction. Instead, he felt tired. This was just the beginning. There would be more battles, more death, more destruction. The road ahead was long and dark. But they had taken the first step. The wolves had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. "Send a message to Earth Command," he said quietly. "Operation Awakening successful, all targets destroyed, awaiting further orders." He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Somewhere out there, the Emperor was about to learn that humanity was no longer prey. The lesson would be written in fire and blood, and it would not be forgotten for 1,000 years. The war had begun. The Galactic Concord had kept peace among the stars for 12,000 years. 47 species had signed its founding charter, agreeing to settle disputes through negotiation rather than war. The system worked because everyone understood the rules. Elder races made decisions. Younger races obeyed. Anyone who stepped out of line was crushed by the combined might of the conquered fleet. Humanity had just broken every rule in the book, and no one knew what to do about it. Ambassador Al of the Collective stood in the great assembly hall on Nexus Station, watching chaos unfold around him. His species were avians, graceful beings with feathered wings and keen eyes that could spot a lie from across a room. They had always been somewhat sympathetic to humanity. Now they were trying to stay neutral in a situation that grew more dangerous by the hour. "This is an outrage," screamed the new delegate. The previous one had fled back to his in terror after the human declaration of war. "The humans must be punished. They must be disarmed. They must be made to kneel." "And how do you propose we do that?" asked Ambassador of a species of tall beings with gray skin and black eyes. "Your patrol fleet is debris. Your border stations are captured. The humans have destroyed more ships in 2 weeks than we lost in the last 3 wars combined." Al listened as the debate raged on. Reports were still coming in from across human space. Hidden shipyards had revealed themselves in dozens of locations. The human fleet now numbered over 200 vessels, all of them using technology that conquered scientists could not explain. "How did they develop these weapons?" demanded a delegate from the Federation. "We monitored them. We restricted their research. They should not have anything more dangerous than patrol boats." Al stepped forward to speak. "Perhaps we monitored what they wanted us to see. Perhaps we were so certain of our superiority that we never imagined they might be hiding something." "You defend them." The delegate's voice rose to a shriek. "They have committed acts of war against a conquered member state. They must pay." "They killed 3 million human civilians without provocation," Al replied calmly. "The humans responded to that attack. From their perspective, they are defending themselves." "Defending themselves? They are attacking our ships. They are occupying our stations." "Stations that were built in human space. Stations that were used to control and oppress them for 60 years. Al spread his wings in a gesture of frustration. "Did you truly believe they would accept this forever? Did you think they would simply bow their heads while you butchered their children?" The chamber fell silent. Many delegates looked uncomfortable. They had all benefited from treating humanity as a lesser species. They had all turned away when the push too hard. Now the consequences of that neglect were becoming clear. On Earth, Dr. Sandra Mitchell watched the assembly debate through intercepted communications. Her office was buried deep beneath a mountain in Colorado, surrounded by screens showing data from 100 different sources. She had spent 20 years pretending to be a simple, while actually coordinating humanity's greatest secret. General Dean sat across from her, his uniform crisp despite the tension in the room. The conquered is going to intervene. They cannot afford to let a young species win a war against an elder race. It would destroy the entire system they have built. Sandra nodded. They are already assembling a peacekeeping fleet, 200 ships from 12 species. They plan to force us back to our original borders and disarm everything we have built. Can we stop them? That depends on how far we are willing to go. Sandra pulled up a holographic display showing the positions of human and alien fleets. We have the weapons to win. The question is whether we have the will. Studied the display. He had spent his entire career preparing for a war that most people believed would never come. Now that it was here, he felt strangely calm. The Council has authorized full military operations, whatever it takes to secure our survival, even if it means destroying the conquered fleet. If they force our hand, yes, met her eyes. We did not start this fight, but we are going to finish it. In Geneva, Councilwoman Lisa Morgan addressed the people of Earth. Billions watched as she stood before cameras, her face calm but her voice carrying the weight of history. My fellow humans, she began, we have reached a turning point. For 60 years, we tried to find our place in a galaxy that did not want us. We accepted insults and injuries because we believed that peace was worth any price. We were wrong. She paused, letting the words sink in. The attack on New Eden showed us the truth. The elder races will never see us as equals. They will never treat us with respect. To them, we are insects to be controlled or eliminated as they see fit. Our only choice is to prove them wrong. Images appeared on screens across the planet. Human ships engaging forces, captured stations being liberated, the flag of Earth flying over territory that had been to them for decades. Our military has achieved victories that seemed impossible 1 month ago. We have shown the galaxy that humanity is not weak. We are not prey. We are not a young species to be pushed around by our betters. Lisa's voice hardened. The Galactic Conquered is sending a fleet to punish us for daring to fight back. They expect us to surrender. They expect us to beg for mercy. They will be disappointed. Across human space, soldiers and civilians watched together. They had lived their whole lives under the shadow of alien superiority. They had been told they were not good enough, not advanced enough, not worthy of respect. Now, for the first time, they saw a different future. We will not surrender, Lisa declared. We will not kneel. We will meet the conquered fleet and show them what happens when they underestimate humanity. And when the battle is over, the galaxy will know that we are no longer children to be ordered about. We are equals, we are partners, or we are enemies. The choice is theirs. She looked directly into the camera. To the people of Earth and all human colonies, I ask you to have faith. Faith in our soldiers, faith in our cause, faith in each other. We have been preparing for this moment for 40 years. Now we will show the universe what humanity can do when we stop being nice and start being ourselves. The broadcast ended. Across the planet, cheers erupted. After 60 years of humiliation, humanity was finally fighting back. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The conquered fleet was coming. The humans would be waiting. And the galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. Nexus Point was the crossroads of the galaxy. 7 major hyperspace lanes met there, making it the most important strategic location in known space. Whoever controlled Nexus Point controlled the flow of trade and travel across 1,000 systems. For 12,000 years, the Galactic Conquered had held it. Now, they had assembled the largest fleet in history to defend it. Fleet Admiral of the stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Judgment. She was old by the standards of her species, nearly 300 years, and she had commanded ships in 17 wars. She had never lost a battle. She did not intend to start now. Around her, 200 warships from 12 different species waited in perfect formation. Dreadnoughts bristled with plasma cannons. Carriers launched clouds of fighter craft. Cruisers hung back, their crews reluctant but obedient. Every ship represented centuries of military tradition and technological development. Admiral, human fleet detected, her tactical officer reported. They are emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system. How many? 42 vessels. Allowed herself a thin smile. They send 40 against 200. Either they are brave beyond reason or they have something planned. Shall we move to engage? Not yet. Let them come to us. I want to see what they are capable of before we destroy them. The human fleet approached slowly. Admiral Daniel Carter sat in his command chair aboard the USS Resolute, watching the massive Concord formation grow larger on his screen. 42 ships against 200. The math was not good, but math was not everything. All ships hold formation, Daniel ordered. Wait for my signal. Commander Price stood on the bridge of the Defiance nearby. His ship had been repaired after the first battle and upgraded with new systems that had never been tested in combat. He trusted his crew. He trusted his weapons. He was not sure he trusted the plan. Admiral, the Concord flagship is hailing us, his communications officer reported. Put her through. Admiral appeared on screen. Her gray face was calm, her black eyes revealing nothing. Human Commander, I am Fleet Admiral of the Galactic Concord Peacekeeping Force. You are ordered to power down your weapons and surrender your ships. Your leaders will be taken into custody and tried for crimes against the Concord. If you comply, your crews will be treated fairly. Daniel leaned forward. Admiral, I am authorized to offer you a similar choice. Withdraw your fleet from this system. Recognize humanity's right to self-defense and self-determination. There does not need to be a battle here today. Made a sound that might have been laughter. You are outnumbered 5-1. Your species has been part of galactic civilization for barely a century. What makes you think you can threaten me? I think you should ask that question. They were also very confident before we destroyed their fleet. Daniel's voice hardened. This is your last chance, Admiral. Turn around and go home. Tell the Conquered that humanity is not to be pushed anymore. We can be friends or enemies. The choice is yours. The choice was made when you attacked ships. Eyes narrowed. Surrender now or be destroyed. You have 1 minute. The transmission ended. Daniel looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were scared. They had every right to be scared, but they were also determined. All ships, he said quietly, execute Phase 1. The human fleet began to glow with strange energy. Conquered sensors went wild, unable to identify what was happening. Then, in an instant, the human ships vanished. Stared at empty space where her enemies had been. Where did they go? Find them. Admiral, we cannot detect them anywhere in the system. They have simply disappeared. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The conquered fleet sat in perfect formation, waiting for an enemy that seemed to have fled. Then the eternal judgment shuddered, as explosions ripped through her lower decks. We have been boarded, screamed a damage control officer. Human soldiers are inside the ship. They appeared out of nowhere. Across the conquered fleet, similar reports flooded in. Human Marines wearing suits that allowed them to phase through solid matter had materialized inside a dozen enemy vessels. They had not come to capture. They had come to destroy. On the eternal judgment, watched in horror as her own crew fought against enemies who moved through walls like ghosts. The humans targeted engineering sections and weapon systems. They planted explosives that detonated before anyone could stop them. Then the human fleet reappeared, and the real battle began. Missiles erupted from human ships in waves. These were not ordinary weapons. Each carried a tiny artificial singularity that tore holes in reality itself. Conquered shields, designed to stop energy and matter, had no defense against attacks that simply removed sections of their ships from existence. All ships engage, ordered, but her fleet was already in chaos. Ships that had been boarded were crippled or destroyed from within. Ships that had not been boarded were being torn apart by weapons they could not understand. The Defiance led a squadron directly into the heart of the conquered formation, watched as enemy ships exploded around him. His weapons officer fired continuously, targeting engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. "Commander, 3 cruisers on intercept course," reported. "They are trying to ram us." "Evasive action, take them out." The gravity cannon fired 3 times. 3 cruisers crumpled into wreckage. The survivors tried to scatter, but human ships were everywhere now, cutting off escape routes and hunting down anyone who tried to flee. On the Eternal Judgment knew the battle was lost. Half her fleet was destroyed or disabled. The other half was fighting desperately just to survive. She had underestimated the humans, just as everyone had underestimated them for 60 years. "This is Admiral Carter," a voice crackled over all frequencies. "Any ship that powers down its weapons will be spared. Continue fighting and you will be destroyed. The choice is yours." One by one, conquered ships went dark. Their captains had seen enough. They had come expecting to discipline a young species that had forgotten its place. Instead, they had found an enemy that was ready for them, that had been preparing for this moment for decades. Stared at the destruction around her. Her fleet was broken. Her reputation was ruined. Everything she believed about the natural order of the galaxy had been proven wrong. "Power down weapons," she said quietly. "Signal our surrender." The Battle of Nexus Point was over. Humanity had won. Admiral Daniel Carter looked at the wreckage and the surviving ships and felt no joy. Thousands had died on both sides. The galaxy had been changed forever. There was no going back now. "Send a message to Earth," he said. "The battle is won. The conquered fleet is neutralized, awaiting instructions." He closed his eyes and let out a long breath. The hardest part was still ahead. Winning a battle was one thing. Winning a peace would be something else entirely. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, humanity had proven that they were no longer prey, and that would have to be enough. The war ended not with a bang but with a signature. 3 months after the Battle of Nexus Point, the Emperor pressed his claw against a document that surrendered everything his species had taken from humanity. Colonies that had been seized were returned. Reparations were promised for the families of those killed at New Eden. The Emperor himself was taken into custody to face trial for genocide. Councilwoman Lisa Morgan watched the ceremony from Earth, surrounded by advisors and military officers who had worked for this moment their entire lives. The signing took place on a human station, and the delegation looked small and broken. Their empire was not destroyed, but their power was shattered. They would never again be able to threaten anyone. "It is done," said General Dean, standing beside her. "They have surrendered unconditionally." Lisa nodded, but she felt no celebration. Too many had died to reach this point. Too much had been destroyed. Victory had come at a terrible cost, and the bill was still being counted. "What about the conquered?" she asked. "Reorganizing. They are terrified of us now. Half the member species want to make peace before we turn our guns on them. The other half want to form a coalition against us." Smiled grimly. "Neither side knows what to do with a young species that refuses to stay in its place." The Galactic Conquered had survived the war, but it was not the same institution it had been. Humanity had been offered a seat on the High Council, the governing body that made decisions for all member species. For 60 years, humans had begged for this recognition. Now it was being given freely, out of fear rather than respect. Lisa had not yet decided whether to accept. Ambassador Al of the arrived on Earth a week later. His species had stayed neutral during the conflict, and now they wanted to build something new. He met with Lisa in a garden outside Geneva, surrounded by flowers that humans had cultivated for thousands of years. "Your people have changed everything," Al said. His feathered wings rustled in the breeze. "The old order is broken. A new one must be built. And what do you propose? Lisa asked. Alliance, true partnership between our species, not the false equality the conquered offered, but something real. He looked at her with his keen avian eyes. The always believed humanity had potential. Now that potential has been proven. We would like to help you shape what comes next. Lisa considered his words. They had been kind to humanity when kindness was rare. They had spoken up in conquered debates, had pushed for fair treatment, had done what little they could within a system that was designed to keep humans down. They have made similar offers, she said. So have though their admiral is still a prisoner. Everyone wants to be friends with humanity now that we have shown our teeth. Does that surprise you? No, but I wonder how many of them would have stood beside us when we were weak. Al was quiet for a moment. Very few, he admitted. Perhaps none. The strong protect the strong. That is the way of the galaxy. You have proven you belong among the strong. Now you must decide what kind of power you want to be. Admiral Daniel Carter did not attend any of the diplomatic meetings. When the fighting ended, he had requested leave and returned to Montana, to a small farm that had been in his family for generations. He spent his days working the land and trying not to think about the thousands who had died under his command. The nightmares came every night. He saw ships crumpling under gravity weapons. He saw conquered vessels exploding in balls of fire. He saw the faces of his own sailors who had not survived the battles. Victory had been necessary, but it had not been clean. Lisa found him there 2 months after the surrender. She drove up the dusty road to his farmhouse and found him sitting on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains. He looked older than she remembered. The war had taken something from him that could not be replaced. "Admiral," she said, "I am not an admiral anymore, just a farmer now." She sat down beside him. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The sky turned from blue to gold to red, and the first stars began to appear. "The want an alliance," Lisa finally said. "So do thee and several others. We are being offered everything we ever wanted." "And what do you want?" Lisa thought about the question. She had spent her career fighting for human rights in a galaxy that considered humans inferior. She had believed that diplomacy and patience would eventually win respect. Instead, it had taken war. "I want to build something better," she said. "Not an empire, not a new conquered that puts us on top instead of the bottom. Something different. A galaxy where strength does not automatically mean cruelty, where young species are guided rather than exploited." Daniel watched the stars brighten in the darkening sky. "That sounds like a dream." "All progress starts as a dream." Lisa looked at him. "We have the power now to shape what comes next. We can become what the elder races were, using our strength to dominate and control. Or we can be something new, something better." "Can we? We just finished killing thousands of beings who stood against us. Some of them were only following orders. Some of them probably thought they were doing the right thing." Daniel shook his head. "I do not know if we are good enough to build the galaxy you are describing." "Neither do I," Lisa admitted, "but I think we have to try." They sat together in silence as the night settled around them. Somewhere up there, human ships patrolled borders that were now respected rather than mocked. Children on a dozen colonies were growing up in a galaxy that would never again see humanity as easy prey. The war was over. The hard work of peace was just beginning. Daniel finally spoke. "The council called yesterday. They want me to lead a new fleet, one designed for exploration rather than combat. They say we need to show the galaxy that humanity is more than just warriors." "What did you tell them?" "I told them I would think about it." He looked at the stars again. "I have done enough fighting for one lifetime, but maybe there are other ways to serve." Lisa stood up to leave. At the edge of the porch she paused. "We could have been their friends, you know, though the conquered, all of them. If they had just treated us with basic decency, none of this would have happened." "I know. Do you think they understand that now? Daniel considered the question. Some of them do, the rest will learn. One way or another they will learn. Lisa nodded and walked to her car. Before she drove away, she looked back at the old soldier sitting alone on his porch, staring at the stars that humanity had finally claimed as their own. They had won the war. Now they had to prove they deserved the peace. It would be the work of generations. But for the first time in 60 years, humanity had the chance to do it on their own terms. And that, in the end, was what the war had really been about. Not conquest, not revenge, just the simple right to stand among the stars as equals. They had earned that right in blood and fire. Now they would honor it by building something worth fighting for. The galaxy was watching. Humanity would not let them down.